Hello and welcome. I'm Melinda Akinlami. Tonight, President Buhari moves to check activities of bandits and militia groups, seeks the assistance of the countries of Sahel and Sahara regions to check inflow of illegal small arms into Nigeria. Passengers call for reforms of Rigasa train station in Kaduna State as they besiege rail facility in a bid to avoid the Kaduna-Abuja expressway over spate of kidnapping. At least 7 people feared dead and several others injured as petrol tanker burst into flames in Gombe State. And protests continue in Sudan as new military leader vows to uproot regime and restructure the country. On business news tonight, Nigeria Labour Congress asked federal government to disregard International Monetary Fund's call for fuel subsidy removal.
And on sports news tonight, Super Eagles coach Kenneth Rowe calls for caution after the 3-time African champions were pitched against Guinea, Madagascar and Burundi at the 2019 African Cup of Nations.
The inflow of illegal small arms is one of the factors that has fueled insecurity in Nigeria, and the president is seeking the cooperation of the countries of the Sahel and Saharan regions to check the trend. President Muhammadu Buhari made this appeal today at a one-day meeting of the Conference of Heads of State and Government of the Community of Sahel-Saharan States, otherwise known as CENSAD, in N'Djamena, the Chadian capital. According to the president, stopping the inflow of small arms into the country will help in dealing with the activities of militia forces, bandits and insurgents in Nigeria. In a statement by his special assistant on media and publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, the president described the trend as very disturbing and has forced his administration to seek support from a wider circle of countries to tackle the menace. Emphasizing the key role of the regional body can play in this regard, the statement adds, and I quote, "It's in view of the significance of this organization and the role it can play in furthering domestic security that President Buhari ordered the reinvigoration of our nation's interest, approved the payment of the backlog of unpaid funds, and for a speedier work on the processes of the ratification of the treaty binding the members of the organization." End of quote. President Buhari also tabled for discussions at the summit the problems of irregular migration and trafficking in persons, while calling for the protection of the large population of Nigerians living both legally and illegally in Libya, which is the host country of the CENSAD Secretariat. Many people are feared killed and others injured in a fresh violence in Wukari, south of Taraba State. Several houses are also said to have been burnt in the communal clashes which began last weekend. The state governor, Mr. Darius Ishaku, has condemned the violence which he attributed to the crisis between Jukun and Tiv people in Taraba and Benue State. According to a statement by the media aide to the governor, the latest violence occurred in Kente, a border community in Taraba State, resulting from a minor conflict between a Jukun and a Tiv. The governor asked the residents of the affected border communities to live together in peace and harmony, as frequent crises lead to disruption of economic activities and provokes poverty and hunger. Meanwhile, the police command in Taraba State is yet to comment on the latest conflict in the state. And security is also affecting the rail system in Kaduna State. The influx of passengers traveling to Abuja from the Kaduna rail station in Rigasa area of the state capital is on the rise due to kidnapping and armed robbery along the Kaduna-Abuja highway. This is in spite of the recent move by the Acting Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, who inaugurated Operation Pofada to tackle the menace of crime along the expressway. Our correspondent who visited the train station reports that the facilities are being overstretched due to the number of passengers who go there every day.
This is the Abuja-Kaduna train station in Rigasa, Kaduna State. The influx of travelers here is unprecedented and unusual. This is due to the recent cases of kidnapping and attacks by armed bandits along the Abuja-Kaduna highway. The travelers have resorted to the use of the train as a means of transporting themselves between both cities, thereby putting pressure on the capacity of the train to meet increasing demand.
The number one factor, to be frank and sincere, is the issue of security. If your safety counts, it's safety first. So it doesn't matter the number of hours you spend. What we pray for is that the government should sit up and do something about the insecurity issues so that there won't be kidnapping along Abuja-Kaduna road. And then secondly, the Federal Ministry of Transportation, particularly the National Rail Services, should do more to upgrade the services and put more frequent trains.
While a few passengers are lucky to sit inside this small waiting room to obtain their tickets, majority of them are forced to remain on the queue pending when they get the tickets.
Since they only have one waiting room, why can't they consider, for instance, leasing out part of the land for private people to come and build a place where people can pay to wait for the train if they cannot provide for it, just like in the airports.
This long queue is now a daily routine for passengers if they must travel to Abuja by train, but they seem to have no other choice than to adapt to the situation.
There are inconveniences there, but still with the inconveniences, I think I'm okay because my life is more important and the life of my grandchildren is more important to me.
According to the Nigerian Railway Corporation, the current capacity at the Rigasa train station stands at about 2,500 passengers per day. And they say the only way they can accommodate the influx is when additional coaches are procured.
The sit-out continues in Lagos in honor of the missing 112 Chibok schoolgirls kidnapped from their hostel in 2014. Their faces and name now adorn Falomo roundabout in Ikoyi area of Lagos, as well as other parts of Nigeria. Unfortunately, that's the only access that family and friends have to them. The continuous call for their release from Boko Haram captivity 5 years after continues to bind individuals from different walks of life and forms a continuous sit-out, especially as April 14th, the date of the unfortunate incident, draws near. Their demands include making schools safe and restoring Nigerians who have been forced into terrorism.
We want the insurgents chased back out of Nigeria, but we also say that when you bring back our girls, we also need to remember that some of the people who have become involved in this terrorism are there because they were abandoned by their country. We need to also be ready to bring back even our terrorists, even our boys, because when the Chibok girls were being kidnapped, some of those who took part in the kidnapping and enabled 57 of them to escape during the course of the kidnapping were actually people who had been kidnapped from Chibok in the past. So this is, to tell us that people don't necessarily wake up and say, I want to be I want to be a terrorist. I want to put other people into misery. So we need to think about how we will bring our country back together again.
In the meantime, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, is assuring Nigerians that his promise to ensure the release of Leah Sharibu and the remaining Chibok schoolgirls from Boko Haram captivity remains valid and will be fulfilled. The President renewed the pledge in a message by his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, to mark the 5th anniversary of the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls. President Buhari had promised the parents of the kidnapped girls when he met them at the beginning of his first term as president that he would ensure their daughters returned home. The president also acknowledged that it was his promise that made the people of Chibok vote for him overwhelmingly in the February presidential election. He said that though his government had so far succeeded in securing the release of 107 of the girls, he would not rest until the remaining girls are reunited with their families. On to a rather sad story in Gombe State, where no fewer than 7 people have been confirmed dead and several cars burnt after a petrol tanker exploded at Bomala Bridge axis of Gombe Metropolis this afternoon. Eyewitnesses say the fuel-laden tanker collided with a truck carrying bottled water along Gombe's southern bypass. The friction from the contact, however, sparked the fire, which later spread to the other side of the bridge. Rescue officials have been able to remove at least 7 charred bodies from the scene of the incident. The Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, has sealed up some fuel stations in Abeokuta Metropolis for hoarding, creating artificial scarcity, and under-dispensing the product. The head of operations in the Ogun office of the Department of Petroleum Resources, Mr. Munat Bello Zagi, warned residents to avoid panic buying and hoarding of products at home. She also frowned at the diversion of product by marketers.
Whoever we see that is doing under dispensing, diversion, overpricing, will be sanctioned accordingly. We have been sanctioning them. Even yesterday, for this week, I think we've sanctioned in Ogun State about 10 filling stations. Most of the ones with sanctions were actually under dispensing AGO. Yesterday evening we observed that some stations had some queues, and that's why we've been going around. It's a perceived scarcity because there's no scarcity. From the data we are having from our depot in Masimi and some of the depots in Lagos, there shouldn't be queues in the filling station. We're urging the public not to engage in panic buying, not to store products in their houses because of the dangers of having hydrocarbon, especially PMS, AGO, stored in their houses.
Let's switch gears to politics now. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in the February 2019 election, that's Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has reacted to allegations by the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, concerning his citizenship. The PDP presidential candidate says emphatically that his citizenship as a Nigerian is not in doubt. In a statement by his media advisor, Mr. Paul Ibe, the former vice president says he would not dignify the APC with a response, adding that his lawyers will do the needful in court. The statement says, and I quote, "The point I want to draw to the attention of Nigerians is that both the APC and its candidate have, by this infantile logic, admitted to the fact that they trampled on the will of Nigerians and that their only defense is to attempt an unconstitutional redefinition of the term Nigerian, which I am. However, I have confidence in the Nigerian judiciary as well as the Nigerian people. I trust that the tribunal will treat such a claim with the contempt it deserves." End of quote. It adds that Mr. Abubakar has served Nigeria diligently in various capacities, from the civil service, where he rose through merit, to the top of his chosen profession, to public service, where he was a vice president of Nigeria. The response is coming on the heels of the defense presented by the All Progressives Congress at the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. And voting has ended in 4 local government areas in Rivers State, where the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is conducting state constituency supplementary elections today. The local government areas are Opobo-Nkoro, Ahoda West, Gokana, Abua, Odua. The exercise held in 20 polling units in Opobo-Nkoro, where the election for the State Assembly was declared inconclusive due to margin of lead. Voting also took place in 47 polling units in Ahoda West, where elections were also inconclusive due to the margin of lead. According to the Commission, fresh elections were conducted in Abua Odua local government area, where there was no deployment of materials and polls failed to hold during the March 9th governorship and House of Assembly elections. Same applied to Gokana local government area, where INEC said elections were disrupted, necessitating a rerun election there. In part 2, after the break, 3 suspected human traffickers arrested by the Edo State Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force and the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit of the Nigerian Immigration Service. Please stay with us.